So what's up, you guys? Apologies, I haven't been around for a little while. You might all well have been thinking, well, she was having a terrible season, so maybe she just decided to give up and, not bother anymore. Well, I've thought about it, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. But no, I wouldn't do that to you guys. As you know, I had some personal stuff going on towards the end of last year, and it made creating content difficult. And then I got ill, had a load of throat problems, which, as you can imagine, doing videos to camera was quite difficult. So I kind of saved my voice for the pod. So you can catch up on what I've been up to at the FPL Journal blog. And I also post my podcasts that I do with @Megtavius here on my YouTube channel, so you can always keep up to date with what I'm up to on a week-to-week basis. However, I thought it'd be really cool because I might be having a little op on my throat sometime next week, and so might be down and out for creating some content for a little while whilst I recover from that, to fill you in on what I've been up to and how I have been doing, and more specifically how I rose from 2.4 mil, I think it is, all the way into the top mil in around about 8 weeks. And so with a little more than over 8 weeks left to go of the season, to show you how it's still possible to rise up in the OR. That's overall rank, for those of you not sure what the OR is. And it's very different to mini league games, I think, personally. As you know, my background is a mini league player, and so overall rank is kind of a new thing for me. And starting badly, as I have done this season, does make a big impact on your OR, where I think you can make up the ground quite easily in a mini league depending on what your rivals do. So let's take a look at how I overcome some of these obstacles and got myself up in the green ladder before snagging a little red last week. But I think that's allowed because I think the majority of us had a bad game week last week. And let's take a look back on how I did over the last 8 or so weeks. This little revolution that I had all really started around game week 17. I got a red arrow, I'd had weeks of kind of ups and downs and I was getting quite fed up of it. But a game week 17 is really when I slipped down the ranks and slipped well below back into the 2 million somewhere after not being there since around game week 6. So it was a really large drop for me. It was time to take some action. I had to do something about it. And after some hits, just in the previous weeks before that, I had to start thinking about taking some larger hits to get some bigger gains. Why, you ask? Well, I just had my worst game week of the season. It was just 26 points, I believe. I know some people will be facing that kind of numbers after the game week we've just had. So I thought this was a good time to do this video. So I just had tanked effectively 26 points, as I say, my worst points haul of the season. I'd already used my first wildcard. That was gone, didn't have that as an option, so it was time to take a hit and chase some inform players, or possibly miss out on those inform players and be chasing the points even further by trying to get them in further down the line. Now, small disclaimer here, I'm not advocating hits. Everyone's team is different, everyone's position is different. I had literally reached my FPL rock bottom. There was, apart from falling further down the OR, worst game week, worst points, and pretty much worst OR from the very beginning, of which you're just kind of pitted there based on how and where you joined the FPL. So for me, at this point, it was kind of worth it, and this is what I did. Pre-game week 17, I sold Wilson and Moreno. Moreno hadn't played for 3 game weeks, and Watford had a green run, they were doing well, so I got in Cabaselli for Moreno. Also, Cabaselli had scored a goal in game week 15, so I thought maybe he had that potential attacking form as a defender that we all know and love in the FPL world. So that's why I got him in. Wilson had had no higher than 2 points in 4 game weeks, so that's why he had to go out of my team. Calvert-Lewin, in comparison, was the informed player. He was cheaper and he'd had 1 goal and 3 assists in the last 4 game weeks. So couldn't go wrong there really. However, as you can see, that did only get me the 26 points. But what it did do is mean that going forward, I was now starting to shape up my team a little bit differently. So let's move on to game week 18. And this is where I had to be a little bit bolder. I had to swap things up a little bit. And neither of my changes previously had worked out, so I decided to go a little bigger. I put my brave pants on basically, and I took a -8 for game week 18. A non-playing Morata made way for an in-form Rooney. Choupo-Moting made way for David Silva. On looking back, this was most definitely the wrong choice. I was looking to save a little bit of money from Silva other than from Sterling, and it was meant to be a slight differential from Sterling. Given that I couldn't have known the problems that faced David Silva in the coming weeks, I probably still, after taking my -8, should have got the majority player. A mistake I had to recorrect pretty fast. But I'll get on to that pretty soon. And then I did Daniels to Jones. Daniels just had bad form, Jones looked in great form, and Man United had great fixtures. It seemed like a no-brainer. And thankfully I did, because Jones did prove invaluable for a number of weeks after that. These moves finally seen me get some points. Finally I was back on track. The 2 Everton boys up front was a massive risk. I'm not going to lie, I don't advocate having 2 players from the same team as forwards necessarily, but in this case it worked out fantastically. Rooney got his 2 goals and an assist, which in itself covered my -8 straight off the bat. So I was already in plus points. And that's what you want if you're going to take a minus hit. And Calvert-Lewin got me 6 points. Now you could say, well, Jones didn't get you a clean sheet, so was it wasted transfer? Not really. At the time, it was the right thing to do and he had better fixtures going forward, so it works out in the end, as you'll see going forward. But, you know, you have to, if you're going to make a hit, you really have to consider going forward as well. And that's what I did with Jones. And sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. So just to mention here that I took a minus for Cavaselli the week before. Well, I'm not really sure whether you could say it was for Cavaselli or for Calvert-Lewin. But either way, I will say that they don't always work out because, as you'll see in the coming game weeks, Cavaselli doesn't get any better really. So he was just a bad pick in general. And now he is still in my team and I am now facing an awkward situation where he may have a non-blank game week as opposed to other teams coming up going forward, and I'm really going to have to think about whether he stays there just for that fact or not. But as you can see, game week 18 seen me much rewarded, so I was definitely moving in the right direction. So let's take a look at why David Silva was a bad pick and take a look at game week 19. So I was hearing reports that David Silva was just not going to be available. There was something going on in his life that we didn't know about, and I was getting worried. At this point, I could have left him in my team and not taken a hit, but realising the errors of my ways straight away, and I think this is something to take away from anything that I've learned this season, is if it feels like it's been a bad transfer straight away, almost like Cabaselli did, although I probably should have recorrected that, then don't feel bad about correcting a mistake straight away. Just do it. If you know it's wrong, just do it. I knew, I had a feeling with Silva it was the wrong thing to do. Then I was hearing all these reports, and so I did 2 things for that game week, and that was I sold Silva straight to Sterling and stuck the captaincy armband on him, hoping to gain back any points that I might have lost with the -4 that I did for Silva. And I also was getting a little bit fed up of Klosniak not playing after Arsenal and a good run of clean sheets. I've had this really bad run of luck where I've had players from teams that have had clean sheets in defence However, I've had them sat on the bench, or they've been injured from that defence, so they haven't played, or they've been rotated. And so even though I've got them in because that team is doing well in defence, they haven't necessarily repaid me back the points they should have done. And that was happening with Klosniash. So I had to get rid effectively, and I went straight for the inform Otamendi, and thankfully that paid off. Because over the coming weeks, Otamendi got several clean sheets, whereas Klosniac has just had, well, he's had next to no game time and has not really featured for Arsenal much at all. That was a good example of chasing points, in my opinion. As you can see, getting Sterling in for Silva worked out fantastically. Sterling got me 2 goals and an assist, which as my captain was doubled, so that was fantastic. The only way I could have done any better would have been to captain Kane, which at this point a lot of people were Kane exiting, and he got a big haul with his hat-trick, and that see me with my highest game week of the season of 82 points and another green arrow. Now my team is starting to feel more balanced, more in control, and so the hits have been working out because I have been chasing the informed players and I've been correcting my mistakes as soon as I've made them, apart from Cab, sadly. But that kind of was, I went with the more immediate problem to change rather than anything else. And so let's take a look at how that impacted on game week 20. It was now time to take a breath. I'd managed to claw myself back up into the 2 million mark. Everything was looking a lot better. My team had done well the previous game week, and so it was time to roll a transfer. This was a good time to take stock, be happy with what I'd done so far. It was a lot of hits, a lot of time spent looking at informed players and trying to get them in. It was time to take a break and roll the transfer. And I am glad that I did, because I managed to replicate my points from the previous week, 82 game week points. I decided to captain Kane and give him the chance to do the hat-trick again, and boy did he do us proud. He got me 34 points all by himself. This now meant I had 2 full transfers in the bank, with a double game week in mind too, and a little green arrow to boot. Finally making it up and past the 2 million mark into the 1 millions. Not brilliant by OR standards, overall rank standards, but still in the right direction. Feeling much more comfy in my position now, and having 2 full transfers and not really knowing what it is I wanted to do. I didn't really want to change anybody at this point. I mean, they were all doing fairly well for me. So the only thing I did do was swap Elliot out, who didn't seem to be playing, because this was technically a free transfer, and I got in Adrian, knowing that Adrian would have a double game week. And I'm going to call this my extra lucky game week. You can probably already see why. I was one of those people who ended up being incredibly lucky, because I captained Hazard based on his fixtures and I got very lucky. Hazard didn't end up playing, and my vice captain just so happened to be Salah. Salah got me 28 points. I couldn't have got luckier, really. Those sorts of things do not happen in FPL. You don't grab that kind of luck very easily, and I just managed to. The Everton boys at this point, though, are now starting to disappoint. They're now starting to drop off, and I'm starting to think that I have to do something to change this. This double Everton front line, just as we discussed before, is not really going to take me forward. It was a punt for a couple of game weeks, worked out brilliantly, but now it's starting to damage my team. I should be looking at other players. So that's exactly what I started to do. However, whilst the Everton boys didn't do very well, my defence smashed it. I managed to get myself 71 points and move myself up another 400,000 places or so with another green arrow.